All right, good morning, everyone. I'll now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as Empire State Development for Thursday, October 17th, 2019. As noted on the agenda posted to the internet, we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda. Speakers representing themselves may speak for up to 2 minutes each, and those representing groups may speak for up to 4 minutes, with one speaker per group. Directors have received the written materials in advance of today's meeting. They're free to ask questions at any time. I'll ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the September 19th, 2019 directors meeting. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions? Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We'll now move to the report section of the agenda, and I'll ask Eric to start things off with his president's report. Thank you, Eric.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you. Thank you for coming down to New York, and of course, thank you for your continued support and guidance in my role, and as well continued support to the governor. I'm now 6 weeks in. This is my second meeting as president, and I'm starting to appreciate the many things that you've told me. Shh. Exactly. It'll stay between us. But it continues to be a privilege to be able to serve this agency and the people of New York. Not only have I made it through a month and a half, but I made it through the most recent Adirondacks Challenge. Climbing up Mount Joe with Rich Newman, and learning that when you get to a cross in the juncture on the mountain, and one says long way and one says short way, and you take the short way, what we didn't realize is short, which we should have, is the short way also means the steep way. So I'm learning lots of things as I get through this position. I've also now traveled to 8 of the 10 regions. I will be going to Mohawk Valley next week, which leaves, last but certainly not least, being able to go to a Buffalo Sabres game with Mr. Zemsky in Buffalo at some point soon. But in all seriousness, I'm looking forward to visiting the Western region. I've also had the pleasure of now speaking at a number of our events over the past few weeks, starting with the MWBE event that Valerie hosted, which was just an amazing and phenomenal event. So hats off to you, just terrific. And also last Monday in Rochester at the NYSTAR Innovation Summit, which thanks to Pravina was also just a terrific showing. And then earlier this week, again with Pravina, I was at the Entrepreneurial Assistance Center in Hempstead, joined by Senator Anna Kaplan and Kevin Thomas, and our Lieutenant Governor Hochul. So just a number of items just to keep everybody apprised of. The state's 10 REDCs submitted their annual progress reports, and we should be pleased to know that these councils recommended many worthwhile projects for funding consideration, and those will be reviewed over the coming weeks, with funding awards, as is always the case, announced by the end of the calendar year. And then also the Lake Ontario Business Resiliency Program, ESD, is responsible for reviewing, managing, and then ultimately working through the funding for our program to assist businesses located near the shoreline and the coastal areas across Lake Ontario, across eight of the counties. On Monday, we had a conference call on that where I was joined by Kevin Eunice and Vinny Esposito to talk to and help businesses navigate through many of the issues that they have, and those fundings are focused on resiliency programs and resiliency steps that these businesses can take to help them prevent business interruption in the future. And this is not the case where we're dealing with lost business income, And unfortunately, as we all know, in this new world, it's not a question of weather, but when there's new flooding, which is why this program is focused on resiliency. Just a number of significant announcements made by the governor on some of the ESD projects. First of all, as many of you know, Cree, the global leader in silicon carbide technology, announced on September 23rd that they were going to create their new manufacturing facility up in the Mohawk Valley at the Marcy Nano Center. And thank you to Howard for being able to participate and make that announcement. This is an amazing project for upstate New York, one in which it'll be a $1 billion plus public-private partnership to create the world's largest silicon carbide device facility, and expected to create 570 indirect jobs and have an economic impact of over $4 billion over the next 20 years. And then on the same day, we also announced the Belmont Park project, which is certainly a transformational project for Long Island, turning 43 acres of underutilized parking lots into a premier sports facility, a hotel room, a 250 hotel, a state-of-the-art retail village. But really, it was about all of that and bringing the Islanders back to Long Island. And we had a huge number of people in attendance, very excited, in addition to the fact that we will be adding a full-time LIRR station in Elmont. Again, I also announced or mentioned that the MWBE Forum took place. It was our 9th and most successful. And Valerie keeps on raising the bar for all of us, so pressure's on to do it again next year, but I have no doubt that she will continue to do so. Record number in terms of attendees. And we should all be proud that our statewide utilization rate is 29.13%. That leads the nation. And it's a testament not only to Valerie's work, but also the work that we all do in terms of making sure that we focus on MWBE firms. So hats off to all of us. And then lastly, last week in Syracuse, we announced 2 industry-leading companies who are expanding their presence. JMA Wireless, which was moving into its 5G manufacturing capability from Texas to Syracuse, and Bankers Health Group, which will relocate and consolidate its operations also in central New York in Syracuse. I just want to say that, as we all know, Howard is a modest man. Howard did invent 5G, which GMA Wireless announced. He was at and this comes directly from Howard. He was at a conference where they were doing 4G, and he said, you know what, we need to do 5G. But, you know, you also know that he's also the inventor of the 5-minute abs workout. When he saw 6 minutes, he said, we can do 5 minutes. He also is the inventor of the 5-hour energy drink. When he said 4 hours, we should be able to do 5 hours. But I'm assured that he will not be the inventor of the 5-hour board meeting.
No, that's not. The 5-minute board.
And not even a 4-hour board meeting. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn it back to Mr. Zemsky. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric, and thanks for that great report and for being ever present all across the state, which is so important. And you string together 11 more monthly reports like that, we'll set a new record for accomplishment at ESD. So thank you for that. Glenn, we're going to turn to you for a summary of projects before we dive into the regional projects. Thanks.
Thank you, Howard, and good morning. The directors will be requested to consider 12 projects totaling $25,132,876 in grants. The projects include 2 Buffalo Billion Awards, 4 Regional Council Awards, and 8 Discretionary Awards. The project will take place in the Western New York, Finger Lakes, Mohawk Valley, Central New York, and North Country regions, leverage over $133 million of additional investment, retain 5,287 jobs, and create 659 jobs in the state. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. So we're going to turn to Amanda Mays in Western New York. Amanda?
Good morning. The two projects that I'll be bringing forward this morning are part of the governor's $50 million Eastside Corridor Economic Development Fund, which, as a reminder, is an initiative designed to spark revitalization of Buffalo's East Side through investments in 4 main north-south commercial corridors: Michigan, Jefferson, Fillmore, and Bailey Avenues. The city of Buffalo's East Side comprises more than 40% of the city's total land area, over 40% of total residents, and about 30% of total jobs and businesses, and thus far has not been on par with the rest of the city throughout Buffalo's revitalization. So the governor put forward this $50 million fund to help with some of those opportunities. The first project is for Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy. The directors are requested to approve a grant of up to $1,170,000 from the Buffalo Regional Innovation Cluster, Buffalo Billion 2, to the Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy for improvement projects at the historic Frederick Law Olmsted Design Parade, now known as Martin Luther King Jr. Park on Buffalo's east side. The project will implement portions of the Conservancy's master plan initiatives identified through an extensive public engagement process. The Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy is a not-for-profit organization that has a long-term agreement with the City of Buffalo for operation and maintenance of the city's Olmsted Design parks in the city. Both the city and Conservancy have made numerous investments in the park throughout the years, and as part of the East Side Corridor Initiative, $4 million has been allocated to MLK Park improvements to complement already completed work and help the park provide new amenities and opportunities for its users and East Side residents. In this first phase of projects, Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy will make park-wide enhancements to pedestrian lighting, a need identified to improve park safety. Currently, the frequency and extent of disrepair to the park lighting paired with insufficient coverage of light in key areas was a major community concern. An investment in upgrading the lighting infrastructure and light quality will provide consistent and dependable illumination in high-use park areas and allow for increased opportunities to hold seasonal and cultural events, as well as increased visitation and use of the park. Additionally, repair of the park's greenhouse complex was identified as a high priority by the community, as it would provide potential for educational opportunities and add to the overall quality of the park. The greenhouse, which was originally used to grow the flowers and plants used in the city's parks, has over the years fallen into disrepair, and despite maintenance of the facility over the years, it needs additional investments for HVAC, weatherproofing, and structural elements. Part of ESD's funding today will be used by the Conservancy to hire a consultant to perform a comprehensive assessment of the structure that will inform what future capital investments from the overall $4 million allocation will need to be made and what funds remain for additional master plan projects. The second project this morning is for the Colored Musicians Club of Buffalo. The directors are requested to approve a grant of $2 million from the Buffalo Regional Innovation Cluster, Buffalo Billion 2, to Colored Musicians Club of Buffalo, New York for construction, renovation, and furniture, fixture, and equipment costs associated with a renovation and expansion project. Originally, there was one Buffalo Musicians Union, an all-white local union that in the early 1900s refused to include African-American musicians. As a result, a separate union was formed in February 1917, making Buffalo the 8th city in the U.S. with racially segregated musicians' local unions. The Colored Musicians Club was formed in 1935 as a separate entity from the union, as a social club where the colored musicians of Erie County could gather and, among other things, collaborate and enjoy good music and good fellowship. When the two Buffalo Musicians Unions merged in the 1960s, as was happening around the country, many African-American musicians were put out of work. The Colored Musicians Club was able to remain intact and continued to allow African-American musicians to have a place that they could call their own in Buffalo. Today, the Colored Musicians Club is the only remaining African-American club in the entire United States. The project will include design and construction of an annex to provide a new ADA-compliant building entrance, along with space for community use, restore the building's facade, and make renovations to the second-floor historic performance space, update fire safety and code issues, and complete related site work and streetscape improvements. These building improvements will help to drive visitation to the club, which, along with its neighboring assets on Michigan Avenue, serves as a tourist destination due largely to its historic nature as landmarks in Buffalo's African-American population. The new annex will activate a currently vacant parcel, increasing building frontage on Michigan Avenue, which has suffered greatly from urban renewal and building neglect resulting in demolitions. ESD funding in this project complements years of small investments made into the building through individual donations and small foundation support. The work of the club's volunteer board of directors over the years has allowed the club to maintain its historic building and performance space, and ESD support is serving as the funding that will allow its long-planned and much-needed project to finally be realized.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Any questions from directors or comments on either of these two East Side revitalization projects. Are there any comments from the public on either of these two items? Is there a motion to approve both items?
I would move
Cesar?
both items.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Well, second.
Eric, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thanks, Amanda. Vinny, I think you're with us. I just want to point out, Vinny, that in reading through some of the materials, I was alerted to the fact that the Flower City, Rochester, was originally named Rochesterville. Is that true?
That is true. Look at you being the historian this morning. Well done.
Okay. And I read up about Rochesterville, but I won't tell you
Well, that's scary.
more about it.
Yeah, I don't want to know the rest.
See me after what life was like in Rochesterville in 1806. All right.
Yeah, right.
Take it away.
Well, good morning, Howard, Eric, and directors. I've got 3 projects for you this morning. The first, you're being asked to approve a $2.5 million capital grant to Paychex Incorporated from the Upstate Revitalization Initiative. This grant supports the purchase and renovations of 6 buildings for Paychex to consolidate its campus in Henrietta in Monroe County, reducing its real estate footprint from 11 different leases in the Rochester area, but allowing it to grow on this new campus in the Rochester area rather than in other parts of the country. Paychex currently has 5,345 employees statewide and is committed to growing 375 new jobs at this location with this grant. In addition, we're also providing a related Excelsior Award for the creation of up to 625 jobs over the next several years at this location. The last of the 6 buildings is going to be occupied and opened later next month in November, and so this project's coming to you for approval today. The second item, you're asked to approve a $600,000 capital grant to OptiPro Systems from Round 7 of the Regional Council Capital Fund. This project would support the expansion of OptiPro's manufacturing facility in the town of Ontario, Wayne County, allowing them to purchase land and expand their building for a 15,000 square foot addition to facilitate their business growth in optics, precision machining, tooling, and computer-aided manufacturing. This project was completed in August. The project had 14 new full-time jobs as part of it. They've already exceeded that commitment with 18 new jobs created. And the third and final project, you're asked to approve 2 capital grants totaling $3.3 million to the City of Rochester from the Regional Council Capital Fund Rounds 5 and 6. These grants would support renovations and upgrades for the Rochester Riverside Convention Center, one of the largest upstate New York convention venues, and part of the Rock the Riverway initiative that you've had come before you at different times to expand Rochester's Genesee River waterfront. This is a 3-phase project. The first phase was completed this past September, which was an expansion of the North Terrace of the convention center that overlooks and oversees the river. The additional phases will expand some of the ballroom capabilities and replace the escalators in the facility, which have been aging. In total, it's $10.2 million of capital improvements that the City of Rochester will be making. Be happy to take any questions about any of these projects.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vinny. So we have 2 tradable sector projects, Paychex, which many of you would not be surprised to find out has multiple locations and regional headquarters around the country where they could do these types of expansions. So it was great to see it in Rochester. And OptiPro, which is obviously in Rochester's sweet spot of optics and photonics, and downtown revitalization along the riverfront as part of Rock the Riverway initiative. So we've got 3 projects. Any questions or comments from directors to Vinny on either of these 3 projects? Any comments from the public on either of these? Is there a motion to approve all of them?
I move all of them.
Cesar, second.
And I'll second it with the comment that I thank Vinny for giving me a wonderful tour of Rochester. So I've now had a chance to see a number of these projects. Thank you.
Great.
That's right. Eric stood on the new Convention Center terrace that you're voting to approve today.
All right. Do we have a picture?
You have to take Vinny's word.
Okay, where were we? Any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you, Vinny. Moving on to Central New York, Jim Fale.
Good morning. Today, the directors are being asked to approve a $2.5 million grant
300 East Washington Street, LLC, on a $30.2 million project. This project involves the redevelopment of a 337,000 square foot 10-story building previously occupied by 9X. It'll be the first floor will be commercial office with 169 units on the remaining floors. This building's been vacant since 1995. It was a round 3 priority project. This is scheduled to be completed this December, and this is a key building in the core of our downtown. It is located directly across from the Syracuse City Hall, as well as the state office building. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Jim. Any questions or comments for Jim on this redevelopment project downtown from the directors? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve? Thanks, Cesar. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Jim. Steve Gold is with us to present an item from our New York City region. Steve?
Thank you and good morning. We are seeking the approval of $2 million in working capital grants for attracting ABC Studios' Quantico series to Queens and establishing a production training program for upstate film students. Quantico is the drama about the FBI's Virginia Training Academy and its graduates. In early 2016, ABC was deciding whether to continue production of the series in Montreal, Canada, or to relocate to studios in New York. At the time, the show employed 50 non-production jobs in New York while maintaining a 250-person production group in Montreal, where most of the series was shot. Shifting production to New York would incur $13 million in production set construction labor costs and $8.6 million in new studio equipment compared to remaining in Montreal. In order to attract this 250-person production to Queens, ESD offered $2 million in grants. The project will bring over $6 million in fiscal tax benefits to New York State and local governments. Our grant funds will be used against $38 million in project costs. As part of our partnership with ABC, we established opportunities for upstate students to receive experience with TV production in a studio environment. As a condition of our grant, ABC implemented a production assistant training program in coordination with an upstate college. The program was designed to introduce students to on-set and on-location TV production work. 3 students from SUNY Cortland were admitted into the training program during 14 weeks of the 2017 production period, and 2 students from SUNY Cortland were trained on a full-time basis during the 2018 production season. The company has exceeded its 250 new job target by 15%, and the project is now complete. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Any questions or comments from directors on this item for Steve Gold?
Are all of these jobs linked to this one series of, is it an FBI series? What did you say it was?
The Quantico series.
Yeah.
It was tied to...
So what happens when the Quantico series ends, when there's no longer?
well, this was tied to specific season production. The first season to be filmed in New York, and they did an additional season in New York as well.
No, my question is, do these jobs disappear when we all know series end at some point?
Right,
Unless
the
it's
series...
SVU, I guess.
The series was
forever.
not continued after its 3rd season. So the grant was really for the attraction and the immediate impact of the first season, but we also got the second season's impact as well.
So we could lose all these jobs in the third, if there's no 3rd season.
Theoretically, these jobs will go to other productions, but not part of this particular project.
Bless you.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the industry at this point is looking for all the people it can find with experience. So you probably have some people who gained a lot of experience who are able to move on to other positions, because I don't think we've ever had an industry as robust, this industry as robust as it is today.
Right, the studios, actually, that this one was filmed at is at capacity as we speak in Long Island City, Queens.
Yeah. Other questions or comments from directors for Steve? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Thanks, Esther. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Steve. Mohawk Valley, Mike Reese. Take it away, Mike.
Morning, Howard, Eric, and board members. We're going to be asking the directors this morning to approve a grant of up to $300,000 from the Regional Council Capital Fund to the Resource Center for Independent Living Incorporated to be used for a portion of the cost of construction and renovation at their new downtown location. This award was accepted in January 2019. RCIL was incorporated in 1983 to provide support and service to individuals with disabilities. RCIL provides high-quality, person-centered, independent living services to more than 5,000 individuals per year in 48 of New York's 62 counties. Finding adequate employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities and from low-income households is one of the agency's primary services. RCIL's previous office building was located in the footprint of the new Mohawk Valley Health System Hospital, scheduled to begin construction later this fall. The move to 131 Genesee Street will result in over 200 employees remaining in downtown Utica and allow for future growth of the agency. The new building is easily accessible by bus, train, car, accessible vehicle, and foot. Total project cost is $1,908,277. The project was completed in 2019. The project is consistent with the Mohawk Valley RADC strategy for creating vibrant downtowns through downtown revitalization. I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Mike on this downtown revitalization project? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mike. Okay, Christopher Ortiz will present an item relating to the new New York Broadband program. Chris?
Good morning, directors. Today, the Broadband Program Office is seeking the board's approval to fund 4 projects totaling $10.8 million in state investment through the new New York Broadband Program. The projects are being carried out by 3 service providers: Slick Network Solutions, Frontier Communications, and Hughes Network Systems. Collectively, they leverage $4.9 million in private sector co-investment, totaling $15.7 million in total public-private broadband investment. These projects will be offering broadband service to 4,900 previously unserved locations, primarily in the North Country region. So these areas had previously been allocated through the new New York Broadband Program to a different service provider. That service provider alerted the Broadband Office earlier this year that it could not move forward with the projects due to issues it encountered with its initial network design. The Broadband Office moved quickly to terminate our offer to that service provider. No state funding has been issued to it. We've reallocated the funding to these 3 providers, and as a result of these awards, all 4,900, the locations to have been served by that provider will still have access to broadband. More than half of them will have access to superior service of 100 download speeds of 100 megabits per second, as opposed to the 25 megabits per second to have been offered by that prior service provider. And the balance of locations will still have access to broadband at the program's minimum 25 megabit per second download speed. So we'll be working closely with these providers to implement the projects, and I'm happy to answer any questions about them.
Okay, great. Good news. Any questions or comments for Christopher?
Well, are we paying more, Chris, is the same cost to us, or is?
We're actually paying a little bit less. It can actually.
We object.
Why? How come we're paying less?
It's a little bit less because the Hughes Network Systems, which is delivering service to a portion of the locations, has a very low cost per location. They're delivering an upgraded satellite service. And just to answer the question, it was $11.5 million under the prior award scenario. It's cumulatively $10.8 million under this award scenario.
Very good.
It's an incredible phenomenon in the tech industry that things tend to cost less over time, unlike, say, construction. which tends to cost more over time.
And the service is often better
Yeah.
as time goes by.
These are our observations. Okay. Any
Write
other
them down, Chris.
Any other question or comment? Don't you miss me? Any other questions or comments for Christopher? Is there any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Christopher. Okay, Simone will present the non-discretionary consent calendar. Simone?
Thank you. Today we are seeking director's approval for one $500,000 non-discretionary award to the Griffiths Local Development Corporation. The Griffiths Local Development Corporation, located in Rome, New York, will undertake a new 31,410 square foot, two-story construction project at the Griffiths Business and Technology Park to create space for two growing tech companies, New York State Technology Enterprise Corporation, a nonprofit technology consulting company, and Booz Allen Hamilton, a management and information technology consulting firm. The building will be adjacent to an unmanned air systems test site and operations center, and will allow the companies to perform their contracts with the Air Force Research Lab and other related entities. The project was complete in July 2019 at a cost of approximately $1.8 million. And I can take any questions.
Okay, any questions for Simone on this item? Any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve?
I so
Thanks,
move.
Cesar. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Simone.
Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, we have 3 New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund items will be presented by Clayton, Pravina, and Sharon. Clayton?
Good morning. I'd like to ask the board for authorization for the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund to co-invest up to $500,000 in Graphenix Development, Inc. in their current Series A round of $4 million. Graphenix Development, Inc. is a Buffalo startup which has commercialized University of Buffalo IP to develop a high-energy density anode growing ultracapacitor market. The company is working with Kodak Film Lab and Eastman Business Park and is producing more than 1,000 meters of product per month. The company already has proven commercial application of this technology with revenue from a strategic partner, a leading ultracat manufacturer in China. GDI has also patented a next generation anode with a higher energy lithium-ion batteries and is focused on commercial scale manufacturing of this film as well. We wanted to note that Kodak Corp has recognized the value of this company and is both upgrading its production line for Graphenix and investing directly in the company along with New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund and other VCs at the same valuation and documentation. Are there any questions?
We're going to go through all of them if that's okay, and then we'll...
Let me just quickly interject something.
Okay.
Liz, I heard
Yeah.
reference to the State University at Buffalo as part of this project. If they are in any way benefiting from this,
You want to recuse from this item?
I will recuse myself from this item.
Noted.
We can continue the next one.
Okay. Pravina?
Okay. Hi, good morning. We are seeking the director's approval from the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund to make an investment into Ride Health of up to $750,000 in a Series C convertible preferred stock. Ride Health is a New York City-based women and minority-funded software company. The company's HIPAA-compliant web-based platform improves access to care for vulnerable patients and helps providers and insurers who manage this population health. For example, for every year, 3.6 million patients miss or delay care due to transitional care barriers for transit purposes. Providers lose over $4.1 billion in revenue from no-shows and delayed discharges. Insurers such as Medicare and Medicaid programs pay up to over $40 billion in healthcare expenses due to the lack of access to transportation. At the same time, transportation providers operate below capacity, on average about 70%, and are constrained in the demand-side access and insight in order to make smart investments in their fleets. Ride Health's HIPAA-compliant web-based platform brings these stakeholders together with transportation coordination and solution that improves the outcomes by ensuring the right patient receives the right ride at the right time. Their current partners are Penn Medicine, American Cancer Society, Virtua, Einstein Healthcare, Dana-Farber Cancer and Associates, and they're looking to build. We have some great investors in here, including Armory Square Ventures is leading this, as well as another co-investor in another. Who is another co-investor with us in a different company. So we're seeking your approval for up to $750,000 in Ride Health. And I'll turn it over to Sharon.
Good morning, Howard, Eric, and directors. Today, the directors are being asked to approve up to $300,000 for a follow-on investment in Kinvolved. Kinvolved is a 3-year-old New York City-based women-led company that is galvanizing communities around student absenteeism. The company works with communities and school districts to fight chronic absenteeism and lateness through an approach that combines technology and human interaction. Their strategy includes summits, teacher and leader coaching, and a messaging and tracking software with 80-plus two-way language translations in real time. Having made great strides over the last year, Kinvolved now works with 150 schools in New York City and 20 school districts in D.C. and 9 other states. They currently have 11 jobs, and with part of this new funding, they're raising $945,000 Series C preferred equity investment round on a fully diluted pre-money valuation of $6 million. They have 11 now. They're going to be adding 5 new staff. The balance of the round is being provided by private sector investors and angel investors, including being led by Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation, which focuses on investing in early-stage social impact companies. The New York State Innovation Venture Fund will receive the same terms as the private investors. As part of the due diligence, New York Venture staff and our external advisory committee evaluated the business plan and growth prospects and thought this warranted this investment. I asked the board for approval for up to $300,000 in the follow-on investment for Kinvolved.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me just ask maybe Pravina or anyone who wants to answer this, because we tend to see these projects when you're at the point of having gone through all the due diligence and you're ready to make an investment. Give us a sense on how many opportunities present themselves, just rough justice, that we don't invest in.
Yeah, our sales funnel starts we have about on average, we look about 20 to 30 deals a month. So, and then through that, we narrow them down. And some of these take obviously over courses of months. So our sales funnel is about 140 deals we look through before we bring some of these to you. And we go through, we start tracking these companies some a year in advance so they don't come here, so we can, as they build up. And then as we look at them, we usually bring about 2 to 3 to our investment committee, our investment advisory committee, before they come here to make sure that we have gone through the rounds of due diligence. These in particular, like Ride Health and GDI, we are actually working with co-investors that we worked with before. So as they look at new deals, which is very encouraging, they're bringing us on board before we had to kind of court them. So that's a nice improvement. But yeah, our funnel is about 20 to 30 deals we look at each month before we narrow it down to 1 to 3.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from directors on any of these items?
Well, I mean, the obvious question is, at what point do you think we ought to look at the portfolio and see how well we're doing and how do we stack up with other venture capital investors? Sort of a overall report.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what do you think, Pravina, in terms of, it's kind of doing a overarching update in terms of how do we fare? I mean, we know a lot of these are still private and illiquid, but they have, some sense on, how how they're performing in total.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that. We just actually took our investment, we had our investment advisory committee come in at the beginning of October and took them through the health of the portfolio. It's great. We now have, if we get these three, we'll have 32 companies in the portfolio mix. So it's a great, we'd be happy to come and do an update. Last year was a banner year for us. We had 11 with these. We'll be at the same pace. The first 2 years, as you guys know, we did ones and twos. So now would be a great time to look over, and if the board's interested, we can do a spotlight on the venture and even maybe bring in one of the companies that's done really well. So you can kind of see what your investment has helped from a job creation point of view, as well as building an industry.
Pravina, do you also want to mention what happened with Datadog?
Oh, yeah. So, yes, of course. So Datadog, prior to this, in 1985, many of you may not know, New York State was ahead of its curve and invested in a couple of fund of funds. And we did a direct investment with New York City as well into a company called Datadog. And they just went public about a month ago. And at the current rate, we're in a 6-month lockup. We should, for our $500,000 investment, hopefully make a $3 million return.
All right.
So, so some of these companies have, a long time span as they, develop into larger companies. And there was a case where one of the companies went public, which is very exciting. So,
It is.
yeah.
If I could just add, too, with the fund of funds, we've had some exits, significant exits, one up in Syracuse with SpinCar, where we invested $450 and we got back $3.5 million.
That's great. Yeah, so I think, Howard, to your point, I think doing a presentation would be worthwhile. And I had one question for Clayton, just out of curiosity. On GDI, I saw the company was founded in 2009, but it's only doing a Series A round now. So is that a function of the company not getting traction? Is it a function of the technology that needed to be built was very sophisticated? What's going on with that company? It's great to see that now that they've got real revenue and real customers, and that Kodak is co-investing with them. I'd be interested in a little bit of the history of that company.
Right. It like many startups, it pivoted. It started off using graphenic ink to solve problems, and then it shifted over to using the same graphenic solution for this ultracast. I think what is lost a little bit is that there are actually Seed Fund A and a Seed Fund B before this current Series A. So it was, it took a while to get to the Series A. Now that it has revenue, it has strategic partners. It's timely for the Series A, the larger investment required in the Series A. They have, in the meantime, to your point, the technology got out of the lab, and with a lot of help from the film lab at Kodak, commercialized that process. So now they can make miles of it when necessary.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on any of these three items? Any comments from the public on these? Is there a motion to approve all of them? Cecil, is there a second? Oh, you recuse yourself.
Oh, on this one?
Is there a
I'll move
motion?
to approve.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Kevin, are we up to admin items?
I think we are.
All right, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, directors. I'll be presenting 4 administrative items for your consideration. The first item relates to Roosevelt Island related tax equivalency payment agreement to support the expansion of affordable housing in the Roosevelt Landings residential project. The second item is a request for authorization to enter into a marketing and promotional services contract with the New York Apple Association for the Apple Industry Related Market Order Program. The third item, and please don't tell the folks currently doing our video conferencing, it relates to authorization into a contract for services, video conference services for the ESD board meeting with Strategic Advantage International for 3 years. And the final item relates to authorization to enter into a contract with 2 one-year extensions possible for marketing services with Lowe and Partners Worldwide, DBA Campbell Ewald, New York, and not to exceed $100 million. Rich Newman will provide a bit more context on this item. Rich Newman.
Thank you, Kevin. Campbell Ewald has been our marketing services partner for the past 4 years. They've done a very good job in terms of the tourism and business marketing components of our outreach. We have very strong tourism visitation numbers, hotel data, as well as total economic impact from a business marketing standpoint, strong perceptions of the state, as well as lead development and personalized communications with site selectors and business leaders. All those metrics moving in the positive direction did not mean that this was a process that went through the whole RFP and RFQ experience. We submitted through the contract reporter a request for qualifications in March. We received 24 responses. Those responses were evaluated by a committee. Ultimately, there were 4 companies that were interviewed. The top interviewers from that process were asked to submit an RFP. The RFPs were graded by the committee, and Campbell Ewald was judged to be the most effective as well as most cost-effective of the options.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from directors on any of these admin items? Any comments from the public on any of these items? Is there a motion to approve all of the items? Cesar, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Now, because that meeting went pretty quickly, I am going to just take 2 minutes or less and go back, history with Howard, Rochesterville, and I'm going to just read to you, because there was a time when people's language was vivid and it painted an interesting picture. This was before the days of Twitter, and I'm not referring to anyone in particular, I'm just saying. So I just want to read to you a description of what life was like in Rochesterville in the very early 1800s, written by Edwin Scranton. It was a wild, this is quote, "It was a wild and deserted place. It was more. Not merely was it a wilderness and cheerless in daytime and doubly dark and dreary in the night, but clustering on either side of the river and running from it for a goodly distance was a thick jungle of all kinds of dogwood, elder, birch, and chokecherry, brambles, and blue beech, into whose tops were matted ivy and wild grapevines, and under this tangled canopy wild beasts crouched, and serpents innumerable crawled." That was Rochester in 1812. And then it goes on to say, "We are hopeful that New York State will form an economic development agency to help improve our fortunes." I was so impressed by that last one. You have no idea. But that was History with Howard, a new segment. And, there is no other business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Okay, thank you all.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Has Rochester changed much?